Have you ever had a team member who seemed so brilliant at all the details and execution of the project, but he also criticized people when things don't go well? He takes credit for everything that goes really well and blames other people and basically creates kind of a toxic team culture. And you might be thinking, he's not a team player, but he's so good at these things. So how do I deal with this? Well, how do you, as a leader, respond when someone on your team is stuck in what we call a narrow aperture and cannot see the bigger picture, cannot actually take in anything beyond their immediate work and their silo, if you will? Well, one of my clients, Kathy, faced precisely this situation. And this might be your situation too. We can use the Leadership Aperture tool. It's a model from the Telos Institute and their Vertical Frontier Leadership Program. Leadership is like an aperture, right? So think of a camera, and it's the amount of information that we're able to take in at any given moment. And so if we widen our aperture, we take in a lot of information, a larger time horizon, more people's perspectives, more my own intuitive wisdom as well as rational knowledge, just more information. And when I narrow it down very tightly, it's very specific, it's short term, it's immediate. Narrow, medium, and wide apertures are really important. We need all of them. It's just that we need to know when to make the arm aperture more narrow or more wide. So there are basically three steps to this from Telos Institute and the Leadership Aperture Coaching that we develop. First is awareness. What is my aperture? So maybe as a leader, my aperture is really wide. I see the whole team, all the different departments. I want the whole company to be working as a group and a lot of interdepartmental collaboration. And I see a 10-year vision. I see a 5-year strategic plan and a 1-year implementation. And I see a lot of different direct reports, and they all have different skills, and I want to make sure that they work well together. Okay? So first, recognizing that, I have a wide aperture, right? And I can't force my wide aperture on other people. And so the next step is what we call attunement. Attunement is, what is the aperture of the people that I'm interacting with? So this particular person in the example who is so great at execution, at tactical, at short term, and their own particular narrow silo, this is a narrow aperture, okay? This person may be really only able to see what we call in leadership maturity language, a skill-centric perspective. So a skill-centric perspective is all about my particular expertise and what I'm good at, and it's usually very short term, a few months at a time max. And there's a sense of which what I do is who I am, and if I do things really well, it's because I'm really great, and if I do things poorly, I'm a failure, but I actually don't want to always feel that, so I blame other people. This is so important. We have to realize that this person is actually operating at that aperture. And because it's developmental, we need to appreciate where they're at and how much they've accomplished. And we can't force them to change. We can create the conditions for them to grow, but because it is developmental, it will take time for them to actually grow into a wider aperture. So in the meantime, we need to appreciate where they're at, right? Appreciate that they are able to execute really well. That when they have their goals and their objectives, they work really hard within their expertise to be effective. And so as a leader, I want to position them so that they only have consequences within their domains that they are good at. But I want to limit their ability to make a poor impact on the rest of the team. So I may scaffold, I may frame I may contain their work. For example, we're at a staff meeting. Instead of sort of leaving it open-ended and saying, okay, share an update on your project, so-and-so, be more specific and say, okay, what are your goals? What are your objectives? What have you achieved? What are you needing support on? Don't let them just open-endedly pretend like they know the whole system, because they can't. They don't know how the whole system works. They don't know how they're impacting the other departments by speaking critical, blaming language in the group situation. So keep it tight, keep it tailored to their developmental aperture. And so you might keep it very specific. And then in the meeting, you want to connect what they're doing with what other people are doing and bridge their aperture with your aperture, which is a wide aperture. Okay? And you want to directly provide feedback to them in private on how they could become better at their skill, their capacity. So let's say there's a specific outcome that you're wanting for that team, and they've achieved part of the outcome. Give them some specific feedback on how to improve that particular thing. They're not going to jump to, oh, how do we look at a long-term plan that integrates multiple departments and that weaves together different pieces of the puzzle. That's my job as the leader, because I can see the whole thing. They can't. Thirdly, second step is attuning to them. So attuning to them, appreciating where they're at, working it within the scope of what they can succeed at and what they do know, right? They're not able to make legitimate claims about the long-term vision for the company. They don't have the validity, the credibility to be able to speak to larger scale collaborative work, because they don't see that. So instead, they might just blame people for making mistakes and feel like it's not their problem, right? So keeping it within that scope. Step 3 is alignment. And it's not really 3 steps. These are all always capacities that we want to develop. But step 3, or capacity 3, is alignment. And alignment is with the system. So how do I bring this person in alignment with the larger system? How do I optimize for their strengths and reduce their negative impact? And this, again, is my job, because I can see the larger system. They can't. Right? So if I want to have a collaborative system and a culture, then I have to be able to connect the dots and frame and lead conversations so that it focuses on that kind of work. So, for example, I might ask different department heads to report out on the progress that they're having within their departments. And then in my role, I connect the dots and show how this department's successful marketing campaign, for example, impacted operations, right? It brought in more work, or maybe the marketing campaign promised things that the operations couldn't deliver, right? Or finance had a lot of trouble keeping track of, right? So you want to connect all the dots for everyone and really making sure that they're all kind of working in a collaborative way. But again, unless each department head actually has a wide enough aperture to take it on themselves as collaborators, which often happens, but in some cases, like in this particular example, it doesn't happen, right? So you have to make the bridge. You have to be the bridge, right? So you want to align with the larger system and how you want to create it. So what are the big takeaways? One is that range, and what range means is the ability to widen my aperture. Range is developmental, meaning it's not something that you can, in one conversation, just click in and have big range, right? Or you go to a weekend workshop and suddenly you can see the whole picture and you know it and you have it in your body. it takes a long time, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, depending on what we're talking about. And so you have to create scaffolding that over time provides the developmental supports for people. For example, you want to have them somehow interacting with different parts of the system, getting different perspectives over time. You want to create mentoring systems. You want to give them training and tools, be in receiving and giving feedback, right? Having a system that scaffolds for their development, even while you attune to wherever they are currently at, and not make them wrong for being there, because everyone has a right to stay at whatever developmental level or stage or aperture that they can be at any given time. Now, side note, it doesn't mean they have to be at your company, right? But as a person, everyone has a right to be wherever they're at. So they may end up needing to be out of the system if they no longer can really work in the system in a way that works. But a lot of times it's up to the leader to create the environment within which different apertures are able to work together and be woven together within the fabric of the overall direction of the company, overall direction of the culture, overall development of all the employees. And so the final word I'll say is that when you feel stuck with a particular employee and there's some things not working out right, first, become aware of your own aperture. Am I wide, medium, or narrow? Second, attune to their aperture. Are they coming from a wide, medium, or narrow aperture? And third, align with the system. What is the system really needing here? And how can I see the whole system as one coherent, cohesive, developing, evolving, unfolding system that is complex, that is dynamic, that is living, and that is constantly changing? Hope that helps. And if you're interested in developing your capacity for range, the ability to expand your aperture and see a bigger picture, and what telos calls wisdom, meaning the ability to narrow and widen the aperture according to what the situation calls for, then you might be ripe for participating in the Telos Institute's Vertical Frontier Leadership Program. So feel free to reach out to me and talk more about it. Thanks.